In this video, we're going to keep working on my bathroom remodel. We're going to do it right now. The time has finally come to tile this shower. I hope you're excited because I am. Let me start out by saying, I've mentioned it before, but this tub is being refinished. I'm going to have a company come in and spray it, sand it down, spray it. I know it looks bad now, but it's going to look brand new when they're done. And the reason I kept this tub is because it's cast iron. It's a nice big tub, and they just don't make them like that anymore. And if I didn't have to buy a new one, I didn't want to. So I like the look of the tub. I think it's going to look great when it's like this nice bright white. But with that being said, let's do some tile. When it comes to picking tiles for your shower, it's all preference. What looks good to you might not look good to somebody else. You can pick any size tiles, big, small, any kind of color variation you want. If you want contrasting colors compared to other tiles or other things in the bathroom, or if you want to match them, that's all up to you, whatever you want to do. Don't let anybody tell you that your tiles don't look good, because I'm not gonna, and you shouldn't either. I also made a video in this series on tiling the floor, so there's going to be some repeated information, but I'm going to make this video as this is your first time seeing any of my videos. I want you to get an overall view of how you would tile a shower. So I also made a video on doing this backer board, on how to do the weedy board. So if you want to check that video out, or the floor tile video, I'll leave links in the description so you can go check those out. These are the tiles that I picked out for the shower. These have a random pattern, but they're on the gray scale. And then I'm going to use this for an accent tile. So basically these are going to go sit just like this, and then they're going to be like a brick pattern or a subway tile pattern. And then I have a bullnose tile, which is a finishing tile that's going to go right here all the way up to the ceiling. And then I'm going to use this tile, a row of 3, to do an accent line all the way around. And then I'm going to also use these for my shelf, for the back of the shelf. I'll also use the bullnose to go around here. So I have an idea of how I want to do this, and like I said, just come up with a design, look online, see what works for you. I have this design in my head. I think it's going to look good. So I'm going to start on the back wall. Start with the biggest wall first, and if I start here, my tile will go here, and then the next tile will butt up to that. So the grout line will be kind of hidden right here instead of straight on. That's just my preference. One thing I want to do is make sure this is nice and level, and it just so happens that the tub is level this way, so that's good. But on the sides, it's gonna be about there is level. So I got about a 1/2 inch to make up for there. So that's something I want to think about before I put the tile on this wall, and decide whether I want to hold this up a 1/2 inch or if I want to set it down tight and then rip these ones down. Okay, so I've cut some little strips that are a little less than 1/2 inch. And what's going to happen is I'll hold them underneath the tile over there, and I'll have a gap like that, which will make the tile level. So that's going to be a grout line. There's going to be a grout line underneath the whole thing here. And either way, whether you decide to put the tile tight here and rip the tiles, or to put spacers like this, you're going to want the tile to be completely level all the way around, because if not, you'll start running into problems, and you don't want unlevel tile anyways. So that's my plan. I can now start on the back wall, use those spacers to hold my tiles up. I'm going to get a center line, which is right here, and that's going to be my center line. And I'm going to grab my level, and I'm going to plumb this all the way up. That way, as I do my tile, I know that I'm staying center and everything's going to be nice and even all the way up. There we go. There's my center line, and I continued it past the shelf. So the words level, center, even are very important when you do tile. Just keep that in mind. Okay, a couple other things you're going to need. I'm using this Omni Grip tile adhesive. Thing that's nice about this is it's pre-mixed. If you're doing tile and you want to take a break or something, just put the lid on and clean off your trowel, which is another thing you're going to need. This one is a 1/4 inch, so there's 1/4 inch spaces right here. They have 1/2 inch, they have V-notch, which is like 3/16, I think, or 1/8. But I like using 1/4 inch, especially because this wall might not be perfect. There might be, you know, waves in it or unevenness. So that will help with that, putting a little extra mastic, as I call it, on the back. And what will also help with that are these things here. These are tile levelers. This is a whole system where you have this wedge that this goes under the tile, and then the wedge goes in, and it basically sandwiches the tiles together to bring them to the same level, which you'll see in action. And then the spacers. I'm using 1/8 inch spacers, which is going to look something like that. Some of these are uneven, but something like that. And I like using these hard ones. Actually, they just came out with these not too long ago. The difference is these ones that you used to use are very flexible. So when it comes to doing a wall as opposed to a floor, the weight starts piling up and pushing down. And I've had these get crushed, whereas I don't think these ones will actually crush because they're solid compared to these. Those are a couple other things you're going to need. So let's set our first tile. So I'll mark the center of this and start right there. When it comes to putting the mastic on there, you can either fill the whole wall up with mastic and then plop these tiles on as you go. But what I like to do is back butter, what's called back buttering the tiles, each one, so I know I have good coverage, and I don't cover up this line, and I don't put myself in a spot where I went too far and I need to clean off the mastic and I have to take the dog out or something and it dries up on me. So just back butter the tile like this, make sure there's plenty on there, and then you take the trowel and just run it out at a very slight angle, and that looks pretty good. So I got my center mark here. I want to put my little pieces down where they need to go. Set our first tile. And this stuff sticks really good, so that's it. Push these over so the next tiles sit right on that. Push it lightly into place, and then you use your spacers. Now you don't want to rely on your spacers, but they will give you a good idea of where these need to go. So here's how these leveling things work. You basically, on each edge, just put them in there. I've decided that I'm gonna need them. And you just work them in there. And then I know that my edge is gonna be right here. So do 2 more here. You're gonna go through a lot of these if you decide to use them. But trust me, they're well worth it. You can't reuse these, but you can reuse the wedges. These ones I'll have to work all the way down. If you missed one, you can slide them in like that. Right behind. And then make sure that's set. So this is how they work. Take your little wedge, just put it in here, wedge it tight, and that wedge will sandwich that together and make these tiles nice and even. Same thing down here. That's it. Again, keep an eye on your spacing. In case you're wondering why I didn't finish the tub before I did this, well, I just dropped some mastic on it, and that is the exact reason why. Because throughout this entire construction phase, you know, I've been stepping in this thing and making a mess, and it's just gonna be worth it to not finish it until this tile is all set and grouted and everything. Just as you go, it's a good idea to just keep checking this for level. Okay, I have my pieces marked where I need to cut for each corner. Okay, I got my little tile cutting station set up with a bunch of shower tiles here, and here's my wet saw. It is what it is called. It's a wet saw, so basically has a blade there. You turn it on, it scoops up water, and you can cut tile with it without creating a whole bunch of dust. And I might have filled it up a little bit too much. That's okay. That's why I got the plastic there. And you can use this fence if you want. But what I find that happens, you might have better luck with a different saw, but with my saw, it tends to bind up sometimes. So what I'm going to do is mark the tile all the way and cut it freehand, basically. Want to make sure before you lay the tile, dry it off real good so that you get a nice bond with the tile adhesive. Okay, now I can put my cut piece in. Make sure you put the side that you cut over here where it's going to be hidden, and you want this to be a factory edge. Make sure my spacing's good. Now for my next row, just want to make sure I got my spacers holding this up where it needs to be. And actually, before I put this piece in, make sure this will give me an idea of where that piece needs to go. Make sure you put that in, and then line that up with the center. I want that center to be basically the grout line. And then put your spacers in, one on each side. And that's basically what you do the whole way up the wall. Just keep an eye on your grout lines. Keep putting these in. And just keep checking these tiles for level as you go, just in case something's off and you have to adjust. Looking good so far. Before I go any further, I want to take care of this shelf because my next piece, I'm gonna have to cut this because this piece is going there, and my bull nose, this is the bull nose, is gonna go about here. And I'm gonna basically frame out this with the bull nose. So I also have to cut the tiles that go in here, and I got to cut the bull nose at a 45 over here, and there's just a lot of cutting that I have to do. So instead of explaining it, because I'm going to be thinking a lot while I do it, I'm just going to film it and explain it afterwards. And yeah, hopefully you can follow along all right. Here we go. There we go, looking good. So I let this dry overnight because I wanted to have these tiles in particular enough time to set so that when I pile more weight on top of it, these don't start sinking. So I put these blocks in too. This stuff sets really good, or sticks really good, so these probably weren't completely necessary, but you know me, just in case. So this sat overnight. It's looking really good. I like the way it's coming out a lot, especially around this shelf, which was a lot of measuring, a lot of cutting, basically. And I know it looks crazy with all the levelers and stuff, so it's hard to tell exactly what's going on here, but I made it so that these pieces on the side, the grout line is in the center of the shelf. Same with on the inside. And then down here, I put this one center and then had two even pieces on the sides here. And the same with the top. And the tricky thing about this is when you put these tiles on, you have to kind of estimate where the tiles are gonna be. Like you put this one on and then take a measurement. And it depends on how straight your wall is, but sometimes you have to load up the mastic and it pushes it out further. I ended up having to recut these pieces because there was too big of a gap in the back. So it was a lot of work basically. And you can see I notched these tiles around my bull nose, and then up here it worked out where these just perfectly lined up with the top, and I have a nice grout line here. And that took a lot of very intelligent calculation. In other words, I got really lucky on that. If this happened to be up a little higher, I would have had to put like a small piece in here or have a bigger grout line, and I would have had to figure out what to do at that point. But that's something to keep in mind when you have a shelf like that. Luckily, I lucked out, but you might not be so lucky. So be careful with that. Also, what I did was make sure the shelf is nice and level this way, and then I pitched it. I pitched the tile, loaded up the mastic in the back here, and then I pitched it just enough so that things won't be falling off of the shelf, but also the water will run off and not collect back here. So those are all things to consider when tiling around a shelf. And everything else is going great. These tiles are nice and even thanks to these leveling pieces, or these leveling tools. Yeah, I don't tile anything without these now. There's nothing worse than putting this tile in right here and then realizing that these two tiles are set further back in, and you try and get a screwdriver in there and pull it out. With these things, you can just pop these wedges in and it pulls them right out, even with the other tile. So highly recommend using those. Anyways, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna do the back of this with the accent tiles, and then I'm gonna move on to the other walls and continue this right up. I'm gonna move along to the side walls. I'll let that dry a little bit longer and get both of these walls up to that same point, and then continue. So what I'm gonna do is put my bull nose up this way so that I can grout this edge right here. I can grout that little curve down there. And then I'll start a full tile right here, and then cut this piece and move my way up this way. And obviously I have a pipe here. I got a hole saw, and I'll show you how an easy way to cut that hole. So first thing I want to do is grab my level and make a level line, because remember there's a gap right there, and then it goes down to where that's going to be tight. So I'm going to make that line so I have a reference for my tile, and we're going to do some tile. Put my bull nose right here, tight down to the tub. And then just go even the outside of that wall. A nice finished edge. Pieces in. A full piece. And I'm just going to use whatever I have to pull this up. I'm going to stack a couple spacers, and then this one can pretty much sit tight right there. Now for this pipe, I'm going to measure from here and hold it about where that spacer is going to hold this tile. And mark on here 1.5 inches. And then that's to the center of the pipe. And then I'm going to measure from that line that I made down to the center here, 3 5/8. So from the top of the tile, go 3 5/8. So this is the center of where I want to drill my hole. So let's go drill it. So this is the bit I'm going to use. This is a tile bit. It's 1 inch, and you might notice there's no pilot bit. So to help out with that, I took a piece of wood and took a 1 inch paddle bit, drilled through the wood so that this won't roam around when I'm trying to drill that, because that would be a pain. So that makes it a little easier to drill the hole. Perfect. See how we did. Nice. This is satisfying. Looking good. I cut that with a combination of the tile saw and some tile nippers. And this is the cover that goes on there. So it's plenty big enough. It has a gasket on the back that seals to the tile. So cool, looking good. Keep moving along. Now that that's nice and dry, I'm going to take that tape off, run one more row of these tiles, and then I'm going to do my accent tile. So there's going to be a row like this, and then do my accent tile here, a strip of 3. And do that all the way around, and it works out where this is going to be about here, not exactly middle of these, but that's okay. I want this to look somewhat random anyways. But yeah, really coming along now. So I'm running out of wedges. As I said, you can reuse the wedges, but you can't reuse the other things that go behind. So this is how you take these off. That's it. And then you can reuse the wedges, but those other broken pieces stay behind the tile. All right, day 3. And I wanted to give you an idea of like how I've been setting this up so that we could use the shower in the meantime. Got the plastic up, and that's why I had these screws up here. There's one right here. And as you can see, there's a gap up here, about 3/8, and then it goes down, and I had to rip that last tile a little bit. Obviously the ceiling is out of level, that's to be expected. And then right here, I got a nice big gap that I got to grout. But it was nice not having to rip the tiles. But I'll fill that right up with grout. Tiles coming out awesome. And nice and even because of these levelers. Yeah, I'm really digging it. So all we got left is this one side. And then we can let that dry for a day. Take all the levelers out, all the spacers, clean it up and grout it. And then refinish the tub. Stay tuned. So to start this side, I want to do a plumb line all the way up from here. Put it right at the edge of the tub. And then I'm going to put my bull nose right on this line. Make a nice light line. And then afterwards we can caulk it in and paint it on the other side. And remember, I want to do this level line because the tub is slightly out of level. That'll be my line for the first row of the tile. All set. As you can see, I grabbed some wedges from over here because I ran out. And up here, I did have to trim that down. I had to rip it, not too much, but that'll be a nice tight grout line up there. And then, like I said, this one gets bigger and bigger as you go this way. A couple tips. These spacers and these levelers are not perfect. You can't just put them in and you're good to go. You can throw these levelers in and make sure this is level. If it's not, back them off and kind of play with it however to make the tile good for you. And the same with the spacers. Just make sure the grout lines look good and that you're happy with them. You want them to kind of be even. If some of them are a little out of whack, it's okay because grout hides a lot of that. And also with these tiles, you'll notice I did put spacers in here. Now these tiles do come with this mesh behind them that kind of holds them together. But what I've noticed is sometimes these grout lines are not always even and they can sag. Also, the mesh will just drop down just like that. And when you start piling tiles up on top of it, it can sink and you don't want that to happen. That's why I put those spacers in there. And my last little tip is tiles really aren't perfect. They're gonna be, some will be different sizes, like the width of this might be different than this. So you have to kind of make up for that and adjust accordingly. And just, like I said, make it so the grout line looks good. And if you notice something, after you put these levelers together, it's hard to move a tile like this by pushing. So you may have noticed I used a screwdriver and I just kind of put it in the grout line and just gave it a twist up or down. And I could move the tile easily that way. Just putting pressure up here and then twisting like this would push this tile up. So those are my tips. So this is pretty awesome. I'll let this dry. You should let it dry for at least 24 hours. If you can do longer, that's even better. But 24 hours will be good as long as you grout it right away. You can take the levelers out, spacers out, and grout it. So we're gonna let this dry and we'll get to cleaning it up. Okay, this has had plenty of time to dry. So now it's time to clean it up. And as a reminder, all you gotta do with these is give them a nice little whack. Try not to hit the tile. And yeah, take all the spacers out and you can reuse that stuff. the spacers and levelers out, and this looks really great. Very happy with the way it came out. I like the contrasting dark gray. Yeah, I love it. So next thing I'm gonna do is go along, and where you see some of this tile adhesive that popped through the tiles, that's all right. I want to carefully, without cutting through the backer board, I like to take a knife and just cut some of the cut on each side of the tile. Like I said, really carefully, and just get enough of that adhesive out of there where when I go to grout this, you're not seeing white show through the tile. And there might be other spots like this where some of the adhesive got on the tile. You can scrape that off carefully with a screwdriver, and then even wipe it down with a cloth and water. So I'm going to do that throughout the entire shower, and we can move along. All right, all the grout lines are cleaned up. Now I'm going to take some painter's tape, and any edge that I want to protect, like this one, I'm going to grout this. I was going to caulk it in, but I might as well just grout it. But I'm going to run the painter's tape up this way. I'm going to put it along the ceiling, all around here, and all the way down here. I'm not going to worry too much about the tub because that's getting refinished, and grout typically comes off of the tub a lot easier than it does paint. And it's more so using water to really get this soaked, and sometimes it just does not look good afterwards. So I'm going to tape this up. There we go. I put 2 rows of tape. I want to be careful not to hit any of the paint. Even though you can clean it off, it just makes it easier to tape it up. So now we're ready to mix up grout. I'm using this Poly Blend Plus stuff, and it's the same gray color as this tile. I want to bring all the tile together, and I think that'll help. And you want to make sure you have a nice clean bucket of water. Have a sponge ready, because basically what you do is mix up this grout, push it into all the grout lines, and then you let it sit for a little bit, and then clean it with the sponge. One tip, this is going to be messy. No matter what, you can try to not make it a mess, but it's gonna. So I like to start at the top because the grout is gonna fall. So work your way from the top down, and try and pick up some of the grout off of the tub that you drop and reuse it. That way you're not going through a ton of grout. So we got our mixing bucket here. We're gonna mix up some grout. Try not to mix up more grout than you actually need. That is a pretty good consistency. It's about what you want to have. And just as a note, this is sanded grout. So if you have a tile that's like a shiny finish on it, you're going to want to use unsanded grout, because this literally has little tiny pieces of sand in it, and it will scratch it up. And also, when you clean this up from the tub, don't just go washing it down the drain because of that sand, because that sand can stay in your system, your plumbing system, for a long time. It just drops to the bottom of the pipes and stays there. So try to avoid getting any down the drain. So this is how it's done. Literally just take it and drop it all over the place. And you want to work it into every one of those grout lines. Go over over them a couple times so you know that you got grout in all the little crevices, because this grout will actually help to hold the tile into place, make it nice and secure. And then just wipe it clean. Something like that, and move along. Try not to do too much, because if this starts drying up, it just makes it harder to clean up afterwards. It also might help in the corners to have a little putty knife like this, and you can even hold your grout float like this and stop the grout from falling and work it into the smaller edges in the corner, or the smaller grout lines in the corner. Just might make it easier with something like this. It'll probably make it easier at the top too. So let's grout away. Yeah, so that's the messy part. Told you it was gonna be a mess. That's all right, stuff cleans up nice. So I'm gonna take a nice big sponge, some clean water, and again, I'm gonna work from the top and work my way down. And basically the first pass, oh, see, this is drying up already. I might have taken on a bit too much, so I'm gonna have to work at it. And then flip the sponge, and basically all you want left are some nice grout lines. So wipe it down once like this, get it to about that point, and then go back along and wipe it down again with the sponge and make it nice. So there you go. All dry. So my biggest tip with the grout is not to put too much on. They say on the bag, do about an area that you can get back to wipe down in about a half an hour. And I ended up doing this entire thing, and it started drying up on me, and that's okay, but it's just a lot more work to clean it. I ended up having to take a brush and trying to scrub it down and scrape it. But basically, like I showed you, you want to take the sponge, wipe it down. It should be easier than the time I had. And then just watch your grout lines, make your grout lines nice. And yeah, this looks great. One thing I definitely want to mention is you're going to want to seal this. This is grout sealer. This is the spray kind, and you basically just spray it along the grout lines, let it sit for a minute or so, and then wipe off the excess and seal it right up. You definitely want to use sealer on a shower like this. Even though the back is waterproof, the sealer really helps to keep it clean and waterproof it even more. Just a little tip there. Well, it's a few days later and the tub is done. And I gotta say, from before and after, it is a huge, huge improvement. Of course, there's always gonna be imperfections with an older tub, but they did a really nice job finishing this. Nice and shiny and bright white. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I needed to touch up. I did some grout caulking that matched the grout color right here. And I might have to touch up some edges and stuff, but yeah, did an awesome job. I actually did look into pricing out new tubs, and I just couldn't find anything like this, nothing this deep. And being cast iron, I know I just know there's a lot of people that say, don't ever get rid of a cast iron. And then there's a lot of people that say, get rid of the cast iron and put a new tub in there. But I have put new tubs in before, and they're just kind of, I don't know, I just don't like them. They're flimsy. If you don't put them in the right way, you can actually feel like the bottom move. So I'm happy with the way this turned out. Like I said, there's going to be some imperfections, but it looks so much better. And one last thing, I have always taken silicone caulking and done all of the edges in the niche here and along the tub, and caulk that in for, you know, water. But the more I read online, the more I am seeing that people are moving away from silicone. And the thing about using silicone is the mold accumulates wherever you put the silicone. Not on the tile, not in the grout, not on the tub, but wherever you put the silicone, it tends to get moldy and gross after a little while. And my tub lip is so far in here that the water is going to have no problem going into the tub. And I know that I sealed this real nice behind here. So I'm not planning on caulking in the bottom here at all. And up at the niche, I may use some caulking here, but again, everything's sealed up so nice that I'm really not that worried about it. So that's where we're going to wrap this one up. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos on this bathroom remodel, you can click Hereish and check those out. And if this is your first time to my channel and you enjoyed what you saw, click the red subscribe button down below for more home repair content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.